What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, back with another Outriders WorldSlayer video to bring to you, and today we're actually going to be covering a very short kind of review in terms of what we can actually cover in the game. Obviously there will be no story spoilers in this review, and that's just due to the fact that one, we are under NDA, and two, that does actually give you a little bit of chance to be able to actually play WorldSlayer for yourself, and obviously to be able to make your own decision when it comes to that. Before we get any further, make sure you have dropped a like and a subscribe on the channel. It really does help the channel out, and let's get right into it. Alright, so first and foremost, let's have a quick look into what we actually can say about the story in and of itself. Now, obviously WorldSlayer will be releasing with some story content, and it will be releasing with a brand new endgame version of content as well at the same time. On top of that, it is also bringing out a bunch of new Legendaries. It's going to be bringing out a bunch of new sets that's actually going to be for all classes, and that's going to be obviously what makes the endgame so much kind of mixes it up, kind of makes it a little bit more fresh, because these new sets are actually quite strong, and obviously are very nice to be able to actually compare back to the old sets that we actually do have. On top of that, we actually have had some changes come to some of the older sets that weren't really getting much love and much use in the first place, so obviously that will help try and boost their efficiency and obviously how much they actually do get used. Now, in terms of the story, we have actually covered this before on the channel in terms of like just broadness, and that's the fact that the story will take around about 4 to 10 hours, depending on obviously your experience when it comes to Outriders and actually how challenging you actually do make it for yourself. We actually found in a couple of scenarios, obviously if we blasted through it on like the lowest apocalypse difficulty, you could potentially get through this in around about 2 hours, and obviously that's that's just like absolutely blasting it in terms of like pretty much annihilating every single enemy in one bullet, that kind of thing, and that's just to be able to actually get yourself to endgame. So if you actually do find that you actually want to be able to blast through the campaign in a short amount of time as possible to be able to actually get to the Trials of Tarya, then that's actually something you can do, and that will take a small amount of time in of itself. For every single person that's actually a lover of story content, yes, this is actually kind of on the low end, especially considering the price point, but obviously the main focus when it came to this was the fact that people wanted something to kind of grind towards, something, a new type of endgame, and obviously some new stuff to be able to actually take into it from there. So therefore that was mainly the primary focus when it came to it, but it is kind of setting up for something else that Outriders will actually see. So obviously I won't spoil it any more than that. I'll let you actually enjoy the story in of itself, and let's move on to the next point. Now, when it comes to the trials, I can't tell you everything about that just yet, because once again, that is covered under NDA just for the time being, so you will actually get a proper kind of like breakdown when it comes to the 28th, and you will actually get that video back from ourselves. So therefore, that you just go and wait that extra 24 hours, and then that's something you can actually experience. And what we actually found when it came to the trials is actually we enjoyed it. It's definitely a fresh, new kind of experience, and it is definitely on the challenging end of things. If you thought Eye of the Storm was going to be something that was actually going to challenge you for a day and a half, then this is something that's going to take you even further, and it's actually going to test some of your builds to breaking points in some cases. Now, I don't think that necessarily this is catered towards pretty much every single build. I do worry about how Firepower Devastators will actually actually handle some of the boss encounters when it actually does come to trials, but obviously I do think that the majority of builds, and some will be stronger than others when it comes to trials, but there are going to be, it's similar to how like expeditions, it is to be run alongside it. It's not necessarily a direct replacement in terms of the end game. It is something that you are actually there to be able to actually play both at the exact same time. So if you do get bored of expeditions, you can then run a trial. If you do get bored of trials, then you can run some expeditions. If you're looking to be able to get some targeted loot, then you go into the trials and you actually go through some of the rooms there as well. So overall, I did find the experience when it comes to Trials of Tarya to be very enjoyable, and I hope that's something that will actually translate across to the majority of the player base. So I do hope that you actually do have a lot of fun when it comes to that. Now, as you will have noticed, and obviously this has been broadcast over on the Reddits and over on the socials, we actually have had some changes to some mods, and we have actually changes to some certain playstyles as well. Now, obviously, on paper, this does sound like they're going to be some kind of nerfs for the fact that we've got like Bloodlust and some of the others that actually done Sharp Eye, for example, they've actually changed from on kill to critical hit, and we actually have had some weapon mods that have actually followed suit as well. On paper, this does sound like a nerf, and obviously I can imagine this would actually be the case if you haven't picked up the DLC. So obviously if you've gone into your game and you've noticed a bunch of stuff has now been changed, and it's probably for the worse because it actually has kept in mind what's coming in WorldSlayer, then yes, you're probably going to be on the wrong end of that kind of stick. You are actually going to feel some of those nerfs. But when it comes to WorldSlayer, because of the stuff that that we actually are getting. So we have the three like the Apocalypse mods when it comes to armor, when it comes to guns, when we've got like packs trees as well, we've got the new armor sets. It's easy to tell why they've actually gone through the way they have done when it comes to balancing, and it's definitely easy to be able to see how this could have got out of hand. Obviously we've got, you know, like I said, with the predetermined ones where we now have to worry about critical hits. I've actually found in some cases I've gravitated away from these because you don't actually necessarily need them in most of your builds, and you'll find that most of your builds and most of your pack trees will actually account for the majority of it in the first place. And while it is nice to actually have it, maybe it's something that can actually be a flex spot, and it means that you can actually pick something else up as well. Because of our mod libraries have actually increased like substantially due to the fact that we've have a bunch of like brand new tier 3 mods, and obviously we've now got more mods to be able to mess around with. We don't necessarily have to worry about actually picking up some tier 1s and some tier 2 mods. We can actually go for pure tier 3 all across the board, and obviously this does help with making some really strong builds. When it comes to like the legendary sets, we have obviously seen in the past where it makes sense to have a 3-piece of a legendary set to be able to activate the bonus, and then obviously pick up 2 purples, and that's obviously to, you know, kind of like round off the stats to be able to make sure you have the majority of the firepower and all that kind of thing. And I've found that when it comes to WorldSlayer, and especially in the trials as well, it actually doesn't hurt to be able to go for a full set of legendary gear, and that's the fact that sometimes that max health kind of roll that's on there will actually help you out quite nicely. Some of the damage that will be coming your way, because we have got a, similar to like how New Horizons actually gave us some expeditions with more enemies on the screen at a time, it means that you're going to be dealing with more firepower coming your way. So therefore actually having some more max health, it definitely go a long way to be able to actually help stay in the fight, keep yourself alive, and obviously to be able to actually handle everything that the trial will actually throw at you. Now, originally, when obviously Outriders did drop and the endgame was kind of getting a little bit stale, people were asking for some kind of randomness to the legendaries, like random stats, to encourage us to be able to actually go out there and farm additional legendary weapons. Now, the Apocalypse mods actually do that just in of themselves, because it doesn't always guarantee you to be able to drop with a certain kind of like mod. You actually do have a massive pool of mods to actually be able to choose from, which means that it actually does pay in some kind of way to be able to try and get that perfect legendary mod. So obviously, you can actually get them to drop with tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 mods all the way through, and the higher you actually get towards Apocalypse tier 40, the less chance you actually get of like having tier 1 and tier 2 mods. So some of the trash mods that you don't actually want will actually start falling off, and you'll actually see those consistent good ones like as you actually go through some of the tiers. So for example, if you're like at Apocalypse tier 40 and you actually picked up a burst AR similar to like the Messenger, which we actually will be covering on a gun guide, because that is a burst AR, and obviously, you know, those kind of assault rifles, those variants will actually be very much very beneficial towards something like a firepower Technomancer. Most of the time you will actually start seeing it getting more and more frequent, the fact that it will start dropping with something like Dark Sacrifice or Killing Spree or something like Fortress. So those tier 3 mods will actually are a little bit weighted depending on obviously the tier that you are actually at, so therefore that's something you actually have to bear in mind, and that's something that actually considers for actually farming for those legendaries. So no longer is it a case that you've just got another legendary, you've got another one of the exact same one you already have in your inventory, and you have to worry about the firepower. You now have to worry about that Apocalypse mod that's going to be dropping on there, and obviously this is going to make some very interesting combinations, and it's obviously going to like filter out who's actually going to min-max their build, who's going to try and grind for that specific legendary with that specific mod combination on there, and who's actually going to settle for what it actually does drop with. In terms of the environments, in terms of how the game actually looks, it looks absolutely stunning. They have actually gone back through, from what we understand, in terms of like actually speaking from a few of the people that have actually played like the beta and obviously into early access, that a few of the places, like a few of the levels from prior to the story, so from the main story as well as like certain expeditions, have had a bit of a touch up, and they actually look so much better for it. So you will actually notice a graphical improvement when it comes to that side of things, and then when it comes to the trials as well, or just WorldSlayer in general, the whole place is just absolutely stunning. Some of the settings are genuinely just drop your mouth, and your jaw and drop your jaw to the floor, and it just really does, it's testament to everything when it comes to the level design, and I do genuinely think that PCF have knocked the ball out of the park when it comes to this side of things. I honestly couldn't have imagined a better place. There were a couple of genuine times that when I was playing the beta where I had to literally just stand there for a second just to appreciate what was actually on my screen. So genuine props to PCF for that, and I hope you all enjoy that the same way that I did, and the same way as a few of the people that did in the beta and the early access. just to really sum things up, and obviously just to round off this kind of review in terms of what I can actually talk and what I can't talk about, in terms of like, is WorldSlayer actually worth it for you to actually drop your 40 quid or obviously your relevant country's money on that kind of thing? This also kind of depends on how you are as a player. Now obviously this is a looter shooter game, and most of people have actually gravitated from games like Borderlands, from The Division, from you know, categories along those kind of lines, maybe even Destiny as well. And the fact that you're kind of prepared to be able to drop that kind of money on expansions, and I'm not saying that as a reason to be able to justify it, but that when you actually come from those kind of games, you're expected to actually go out there and farm for hours on end to be able to actually try and min-max certain builds. I feel like this DLC was catered towards those people. If you are actually just looking for this for just pure story kind of content, it's probably better to actually hold off on your money and actually just watch like a video on YouTube of actually like a let's play or something like that, because there's not enough content just purely story-wise to actually justify the price tag. But what the price tag does cover is brand new stuff to be able to actually make your builds so much more stronger, and some brand new content that is a lot of fun to be able to play. So if you are a min-maxer, if you are a general person that actually enjoys looter shooters and will actually take a few hours to be able to actually try and get the perfect drops, the perfect rolls on everything that you actually need on a specific build, then WorldSlayer is definitely for you, and I 100% recommend including the price tag that actually is currently there. But if it was a case of you're just there for the story content and then you'll probably just drop it straight after that, then I would probably hold off on that from your wallets, and I'd probably give this one a miss for the time being. So that pretty much is just a short review in terms of like wrapping up what we can actually talk about when it comes to WorldSlayer. The game will be dropping tomorrow, and we honestly cannot wait to actually bring a buttload of content towards your to your eyes, towards your way, and hopefully it's something that you will actually enjoy the same way that we actually did. Massive thank you to everyone that's made it this way all the way to the end of the video. That really does mean the world to us. Thank you so much to the Babylonian family as always for their continued support, and that just leaves me to say keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on that next video.